Hello, precious people. I'm Jacqueline Parks. Welcome to my channel, Stampin' Turtles. And today we are going to be painting in a Bible I haven't painted in a while. So we'll see how the papers react to watercolor. But it's going to be really cool. Making sure I have volume on this. If you guys can't hear me, let me know. But it sounds like it's working. And so here is my Bible. It's a pristine page. It's going to be Psalm 23. I do have several Bibles that I paint in. If you've never painted in your Bible and you're thinking, oh my gosh, why would you desecrate a Bible? I'm not desecrating it. You can let me know what you think in the comments and we can talk about it. But for what I'm doing, I am worshiping. I'm worshiping the Lord. I read his word. I've already meditated on Psalm 23 today, and it's just a beautiful passage about David trusting in his God. And it's amazing how he starts off with the Lord is my shepherd. And so I have this painting that I've done a couple times. You may have seen it. Let me see. I will show you this one I painted for a dear friend, Donna. I don't know if she's going to watch today or not, but she commissioned me to paint this for her. And she wanted a stream, she wanted animals, flowers, trees. It was a beautiful picture of just peacefulness, the clouds in the background, sky. I really love how this turned out. And the stream, of course, beautiful. And the path, he's leading the lost sheep back to the herd. So for me, this is a beautiful picture of how Jesus just comes, finds us, and leads us back to the quiet valley where we can restore our soul. And that's what Psalm 23 says. It says, the Lord is my shepherd. I have all that I need. He lets me rest in green pastures. He leads me beside peaceful streams. He renews my strength. He guides me along the right path, bringing honor to his name. Even when I walk through the darkest valley, I will not be afraid. So this is a little different version. I'm not sure which version this Bible is. Let me see. I really liked this Bible. Let me show you it. So it is a... What version are you? Do not want to tell me. NLT. NLT, whatever. New Living Translation, I believe. But this is just a really cool Bible. I've already kind of colored. It has pre-printed images in it. So I've just enjoyed kind of seeing what's in here. So that's already printed in here. So this is something I could watercolor really quick and fast, right? I know I have some, I colored that in. That was already pre-printed on there. So it's kind of a really artistic Bible. And so if you wanted to find something like this with already pre-printed images for you to color. I actually found Psalm 23 had nothing on it. So I'm going to make my own. Let's drop all my paints. So we're going to do this. We're going to have just time with the Lord today. If you don't have an inkling to paint in your Bible, but you kind of want to paint along with me, you can get some watercolor paper out. I'm going to get different size brushes and a pencil. So we're going to figure out what I need here. So if we looked at, this is the image I kind of want to put on my page. So what I might do is start off with some hills because it's going to have a valley, right? And so the cool thing about this is that anything you do will be yours. So you don't have to do exactly what I'm doing. Now I'm going to put a tree maybe right in here. And things always look funner, more interesting when they go off the page. Now I'm going to erase what's behind the tree. So see, that's an easy tip as well. You don't press hard. So now I'm going to put a tree trunk right here, a little stream kind of going. And then of course the path. There's another little tree right here. And you can make your trees however you want. Oh, that's too little. Let's make that bigger. And this is good. I like this path. And so this little stream is going to be kind of going smaller as it gets further away. Remember foreshortening in there. If you don't know how to do foreshortening, it's just basically as things get further away from your eye, they get smaller. So I do a lot of just random little streams anyways in some of my paintings. Do I have one that I can show you? So this is some ACEOs that I've recently created, and I just did a bunch of them and all at once. So you can see the bottom left is a mountainscape sky, and then the stream is coming down from the mountains and towards the viewer. So as it gets closer to the viewer, it gets wider. And then as it's further away, it gets smaller. Same with the little house, the little cottage. Same with the little road. So the road gets wider as it gets closer. And as it gets further away, it tapers down. And then also the ocean ones. If you see the beaches, they also get, the waves are supposed to get smaller as they get further away. And it's just one of those things you learn how to do over time and practice. So if you have any questions, I've been thinking about doing some art classes for drawing. If anyone's interested in that, let me know. I would be totally I would be able to oblige that. If you want to learn to, I don't know if I want that tree that big. I want to make this tree maybe just ever so slightly smaller. And that's what's good about the drawing stage. You can still do a lot with this. And I know you can't really see what I'm drawing because I'm drawing really pale. I don't want it to be one of those that's real dark, because then I can't erase. All right. So I've got a little tree right here. Got a bigger tree right here. The stream is kind of going away. We could put some little sheepies. And what I just do to make a sheep, and it's so funny because I had a show this weekend. In fact, let me show you the setup I had for that. If I can find it. So this was my little setup at Art Centricity. It's an event in Silver Hill, Alabama, hosted by Kaiser Pools. The family is just amazing. Nicole, Diane, Kevin, they're all just wonderful how they started this art community, and musicians and bands come and play. So it's really a nice venue too, that's just gorgeous, peaceful, and beautiful all around. This was me, my little table set up, and I had some of my watercolors, originals, and some prints. And I also have the empty tomb that I painted, which is, let me see if I can find a picture of that. So this I painted to do as a class, and I had a really good turnout for that class. The class, everybody enjoyed doing it. Look at the amazing art that we created. So that was super fun, and just a really relaxing and great way to connect with each other and with our Heavenly Father. So today we're just gonna try and do that same image even if these little sheep don't have a lot of detail, the thing is your eye's gonna perceive them as little sheep, okay? And so sometimes when you're creating, it's okay if it's not perfect, right? What happens when we try and do things and they're not perfect? We find out that we like doing something a different way. So I may end up, I don't know where I'm gonna put that. So I'm gonna just draw it real simple. And a lot of times when I'm Bible art journaling, I do things really simple. And I'm not trying to make it the most detailed of details. I'm just trying to make it kind of look, you can look like a person. You can make it more, I like the half or 3/4 way of making the face, just because it'll make it look more like you don't have to have as much detail. And then we're gonna have a little sheep's booty right there, and his little ears. And see how he's already looking. I don't know if you can see that. Let me see if we can zoom in. Can we zoom in? There we go. I don't know. Is that good enough? Is that close? So I'm just drawing this in real quick. And this is I'm gonna put a staff maybe in his hand. Have you ever seen one of those and I know there's a name for it, but I forget what it's called, but it's got like a little hook. So it's not a rod. The shepherd doesn't use this rod to whoop or beat the sheep, okay? He's guiding the sheep back to where it's safe. And so like the sheep are not afraid of the shepherd. There's no punishment against the sheep that the shepherd does. He leads them back. So that's what's so amazing about Jesus, is he's not gonna punish you, and he's leading you back gently into areas where you can find rest and you can find peace. These are the things that Jesus offers. He's not offering a life of rules and restrictions. He's offering you rest and peace. Don't worry about tomorrow. Stay in his presence today. Because like in Psalm 23, it even says, my cup overflows with blessings. Surely your goodness and unfailing love will pursue me all the days of my life, and I will live in the house of the Lord forever. I love that. And so now we got the basics here. There's some basics right there of just a pure drawing. Pure drawing. And you know me with my dirty water on my desk. We'll see what color it comes out today. So if you are on watercolor paper, just wet the sky. We're not going to wet the whole thing. If you're in your Bible, see how it starts to wrinkle. That's fine. We don't mind the wrinkles. Don't minding the wrinkles. But I will be putting it right over where the trees are, because that just seems to be easier than trying to go around them. And sometimes we get a little bit too much water on our Bible page, but that's still okay. We've got a heat tool so we can heat it up, dry it. Another thing I love about drawing in my Bible is just how, it goes from a smooth paper to a crinkly paper, and the texture just was amazing. I love how it ends up looking after it's dry, and it's just pretty. It's just pretty. I like it. And I'm leaving a little bit of white space for them clouds. And clouds need to be showing. And we don't paint clouds white. We leave the paper. So that's how I do my watercolors, y'all, is I leave white space. Now, I have told my students it's not wrong to use your white that comes in your kit. If you have this one was originally from Hobby Lobby. Oh, hey, Beth, Jacqueline, this is a really nice idea. Love this scripture. Love the painting. Have an image of the drawing. It's hard to see the drawing. Thanks, Shepherd Hook. Oh, Shepherd Hook. Okay. Thank you. So this, if you have one of these paint sets, it might have white in it, and you might be thinking, well, why can't I use the white that comes in the paint set? And you can if you want to. I was just taught in art school not to use white, not to use black. You use colors that create those. So you use the paper to create white, and you use like 3 or 4 different colors to create a black. So it's fine if that's what's going on in your mind. If you want to just use the paper, that's totally how I do it. But I may end up doing just a few more little streaks of blue and smearing them around. Letting them go into that little valley. The little valley. So I do have green that's going to be going in here, but green and blue still makes green. It'll be pretty. So now I know it's real light to see the drawing, but we're going to just go step by step. That's what I try and encourage people to do in my classes, is just do step by step. So now I'm going to get this green kind of activated with some water. And if you're like me and you don't like super bright colors, you like them toned down, let me just show you a quick tip. So the quick tip on making this green toned down is to mix a little bit of red. So if you put a little bit of your red in that green, it just makes it like a sage green, which is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a sage green. So now I'm just going to go around this area. And when I'm doing a large section, I don't try and make details. I just get that color right on there as fast as possible. So see how I just filled that in? And let me see if I can make this picture just a little bit smaller so the whole page is in there. I don't know if I can do that. Let's see. It's really hard to get that whole paper page in there. Let me see. Come on, be the whole thing. Still be zoomed in a little bit, but not as zoomed in. So we've got that green that I made, and I'm gonna add it to this side too. And I'm not really wetting my paper on this one. I'm just going straight into it. Now, another thing you can do with Bible art journaling that's really interesting to do is I could block this whole area out and not paint. So then you can read the words more clearly. But as you can see with watercolor, it's so translucent. You really don't need to worry too much about covering the words. The words will be visible, and that's because it's watercolor. It's very translucent to begin with. And now I'm going to do some of the hillside over here too. So I'm just kind of going. I could leave spots where the little sheep are, but at this point I'm just getting the first layer down. This is very loose, so I did put that in the comment or in the title that it's loose paintings. Like, I am not a super detailed painter. I am a very loose watercolor artist. And so I like how it looks kind of loose. And so this is just my blueprint as the first layer. We don't try and paint the full thing. I'm going to go smaller now with my brush. Not trying to get more detail, but I am trying to get a little bit of maybe this path. And I'm mixing a couple colors. You can see I'm just kind of dipping it in my browns. I have burnt sienna, burnt umber. So I just kind of mix the two together, and maybe even a little bit of this taupey color or a little bit of Payne's gray, and I can mix a little Payne's gray in and it just darkens it. So now I'm going to do the path. It's going to go right behind that tree and come this way, and see how it starts to curve and come towards the viewer, right? And go around your little sheep. We're not going to worry about shadows yet. We're just trying to get the road, the path. And I lighten it as it gets closer to me. I even add a little bit of that burnt sienna in just to change the temperature of that a little bit. And so that's off the page again, but it's pretty close to where I'm painting. So yeah, just fill that in. Look at that. And so we haven't done too much yet. I want you guys to be aware, like it's been possibly 10 minutes, and with the drawing and the initial wash right now, I'm going to go in now with some of that green and do some of that blocking in, and I am using it more straight from that. I may mix it with a little bit of green on this side, make this tree just a little bit darker. And I'm not trying to be exact yet. This is just laying down some color. And now we want to put some tree bark. So we're going to go very lightly in here. Now I have not started anything. I just kind of want to do a little bit of branches up in the tops. Not too much, don't overdo that section. But now we're going to do this one over here. And like you can get really detailed. I'm not saying you can't. But for me, I'm a loose watercolor artist. I don't like to go too exact. All right, now we've got that. What about our stream? I want to make it more of a turquoisey blue. So I have like 4 different blues. I think this is cobalt blue, ultramarine blue. I don't know. But I do like the more turquoise blue if you have it. I'm just going to go in here now with this very pale, leaving some white areas because your water is going to have some highlights, right? As it gets closer, you can make it spread out a little bit. This is when you can make some adjustments on your stream, the width of it. So you can do a lot with that. And now I'm gonna do our Jesus has kind of darker hair, so I'm gonna mix up a darker brown with some Payne's gray. But again, I'm doing a very light wash, but we're not doing a real dark wash yet or any detail. We're just making some. And I kind of want to do a little bit of yellow added to this brown to make a beige. So I'm going to add a little yellow ochre to this beige, or to this brown, and we're going to mix the to create some folds in the fabric. And you can make your folds however you want. I am just doing what I think it would look like. And rinse my brush. And when you rinse your brush, dab it on some paper towel. Now it's kind of a clean, dry brush. And watch what happens when I do ever so slightly, I touch the edges. And that can smooth out some areas so they're not so stark and prominent as that. So now it's kind of looser. It looks great. And so this is like a blueprint, this loose first layer. Watercolor, all about the layers, right? Now there's some people who do more in-depth, detailed stuff, and they're doing lots of layers. So I'm going to add some of this green, And see how I just let the brush kind of skip around and not be too fussy. Don't want to be too fussy. Just let it do its thing. You might be like, if I let it do its thing, it's going to look bad. But you will learn after time how that works. It's muscle memory. A lot of people think you have to be gifted to do art from the very beginning. And I say, no, that is not true. You can create bad art when you start, and then practice and practice and practice. And then at some point, you'll be amazed when you compare your first painting to your last, to the most recent. Not your last, but you know what I mean. So then you would be like, wow, I've really improved. And that is the truth. You improve as you do it. A lot of people think, oh, I want to be, professional tennis player or something. Well, I don't think you would expect yourself to be perfect the first time you play tennis. You would have to learn the rules and practice every day. What about like doing pickleball or some other sport? You would have to practice, right? And then you would get better as you practice. See, I'm just adding the second layer of the green in here, and it's bringing that color up. But now I can leave like little areas so it looks kind of like grass. And I like how it skips a little bit. So now I'm just going to do the other side of the stream. I may even add a little yellow to this green. This is when you can start changing the tone, and you can make it a little more yellow if you want on this hillside. I think I did have some sheep over there, but I'm not worried if I paint over them now, because you might be surprised, but you can use white over the top if you use some gouache. Gouache is a great option if you have forgotten that you were going to put some sheep up here and you didn't leave any white space from your paper. Just go ahead and get yourself some gouache, or you can even use this Bombay ink. What I like to do with the Bombay ink is put it in a little cup and then dip a brush that is not a watercolor brush that I would use with my other brushes, like a nice one. I would use it like a cheaper one. Just dab it in there, and then you can paint on top. Now, the Bombay white Indian ink is going to be repelling water, so that would be last, and you would not be able to paint over it because it would be like an acrylic paint. So Beth says, will this be posted so you can look at it again? Yes, all my lives are available after the live ends. It just automatically posts in the live tab. So you can go back and look at all my other Monday lives, and you'll see all my previous paintings that I've done. You can, in that sense, you can almost just get to the point where you want to paint, instead of yap yap. But I like to yap yap with you guys. So now I'm looking at this little sheep. He's got to have some shadow. Let's see if I can zoom in on that so y'all can see. So he is like just the pure white paper. So I'm wetting my brush. I'm getting a little bit of Payne's Gray, watering it down on my palette, and I'm going to paint underneath. Make sure you keep his little tail. The sheep has like a little cute tail. His little legs are going to be dark. And of course, this is not too precise at this point. I'm not trying to make it real precise. We're just doing a little bit right there. But already he's starting to get three-dimensional because of what I've done. Now, is his tail a little higher up? I don't know. I could be looking at something, and it would be a reference photo would make it more exact. I'm going by memory. Now this is a good time while I have this darker color on my brush to just kind of accentuate some of the folds in his garment and even in his hair. So like I did it real like a brown, and now I can go in and do some darker areas. See how it's darkening down at the bottom there? And we're darkening a little bit here and a little bit here, and you can get the foot kind of darker. And I'll show you how to do skin tone too if you want to learn how to do skin tone. Beth says, great, yep. That is good to remind people that I have all of my live tutorials are still there. So now I'm going to see if I can zoom back out just a little bit. So now we're going to look at the whole picture. What does it need? Right? It's always going to need something to make it not so same, right? And so I'm going to mix up a darker brown, because this sometimes is really what I need, is a little darker brown. And I'm just going to go and make a tree texture. And what I love about this is that you can skip over areas that you've already painted and it's a light brown. And now I've got this kind of darker brown, right? And we can get some of the branches kind of coming up here. And it's always good to look at a reference photo. I'm not looking at one, but don't do as I do, do as I say. But yeah, I'm gonna just get a little bit of straight Payne's gray in there. I like how it's kind of darker, and we're starting to add some variation into this, and it just makes it look a little bit more realistic. And again, if you're not good at doing these little branches and stuff in the tree, that's because you haven't been practicing, probably, because you can get better at stuff. It's got to give it time, and it will start to do amazing things, right? All right, I'm gonna mix up some of that brown again and just make this tree just a little bit darker over here. And I'm gonna keep this one a little more watery than this one just because of the words are in here. And so the darker you go, the harder it will be to see. Of course, I do have several Bibles, so it's not going to interfere with me being able to read a Bible. I have lots of Bibles. What this is helping me do is connect with this word. What the psalmist David is portraying is a peaceful scene by still waters. And these sheep are being led by Jesus. This is my interpretation of Psalm 23. And I just feel like it's a beautiful representation of peace and of just resting. And I memorized a different version than the New Living Translation. I have probably the ESV version or even the King James version memorized. So if this translation is not for you, don't pick out this one when you get a Bible. But sometimes it's good to have, just like if you go to the Goodwill and find a Bible and it's like $2 and you just want to start trying this this painting in your Bible thing and you don't want to wreck any of your current Bibles, that's a great place to go. And you can get all different kinds of Bibles when you do that. It's great. You can get a lot of different Bibles. And then I have a friend who her husband gave me a bunch of Bibles that he found in a dumpster, which I think is so sad. So if you're one of those people who rescue stuff out of dumpsters, especially if you see Bibles, just give them to me. Call me. I know people who can use them. And it would be great to salvage them and give them to people who need them. It's funny, I teach the kids at church, and some of them don't have Bibles. And they say, oh, I don't have a Bible. And so we do have very sweet people who bring Bibles in for, especially our VBS, which Three Circle Church is having their VBS in June, first week of June. I'm going to volunteer and help just teach these kids about Jesus. I think the younger you are and you learn about Jesus, the better it is. But even if you're just starting, like I didn't really read my Bible till I was 45 years old. I began to follow Jesus then because of Bible art journaling. I ended up having a relationship with Jesus, and it was amazing. See how I'm going a little darker now? And you might be like, whoa, that's so dark. It looks great. It looks great once you start doing it. Let's see, still kind of preserve some of those white areas, y'all. Don't cover up all the white. But I'm liking how dark this looks. Oh, it looks nice. I like it. See how I'm getting more bold over here? And it's great. But again, that trick that I've taught you guys before, just rinse your brush, dab it on some paper towel so it's kind of clean. And then you can touch the edges of these stark lines and spread it. See how I'm spreading it? And that just makes it soft. Soft and loose. I like that. That is looking good. I may even widen it more right here. I don't know. But I like how it's looking. I'm trying to preserve some of those white areas. But there we go. That's looking like a little stream going up into the valley. Up into these hills. And these little sheep, they don't have anything yet. They need, if I can zoom in on this. So they need, these guys, they need something, even a smaller brush maybe. I do have this super tiny one. Let's see what it does. I'm going to add just a little Payne's Gray. And I'm going to very carefully do the bottoms of these sheep with this very pale Payne's Gray. And when you do that, you get just the bottom of the fleece. So it looks like shadow under them. Make sure you do their little heads. And you can even go darker. Like, don't be afraid at some point to go a little darker, because that really shows up when you do it. Also, their legs. You can do this, you know, a little bit at a time, or just like I'm doing. And really, I don't think you do all four legs. Don't try and paint all four legs. You just paint a little bit. And then I'm rinsing that brush, drying it a little bit, and I'm just going to soften that. I put too much water on that one, but we can soften that just a little bit. Of course, I did one where there was a black sheep, and so that might be one you want to go watch too. Is painting black fur can be different than painting white. But yeah, I'm just kind of just here and there painting them a little bit so you can tell they're sheep. They're not like super detailed. And while I have some Payne's Gray on my brush, I might go in and do a little more detail on this one. Just to get him a little bit darker areas because he's gonna have shading. So that's what I'm doing. I'm making him a little darker. Same with this hair. I might go in and make it a little darker in here. And this is a great area between the two columns where I can actually put some detail and not worry too much about it being covering up any words. But I don't really worry too much about that. I just I sometimes write words after I'm done. So look at that. I just put the rod there, and I'm gonna put some more shadows. And I'm gonna put a kind of brown for this sole there. And you'll notice that they're not really grounded yet, right? I'm gonna add a little Payne's gray. That's too red to me. And dab it out just a little bit. Put a little Payne's gray. Make it loose. And that'll look really good. See how it's kind of walking away, and it's like the bottom of the heel is right there. But these guys are not really grounded yet on the ground because it's very pale and there's no shadow. I usually do that at the very end, but let me teach you guys something. This is how we're gonna mix colors, and I'm gonna switch brushes again. I'm gonna go to this size, which is like maybe a 6 or an 8 round. This one is a black velvet gold edition or silver edition. It's actually a travel version, which makes it more expensive. So just, keep that in mind when you are buying brushes. Sometimes those are more expensive. Beth says, love the way you teach so many little lessons and all that you say. Oh, thank you so much, Beth. I just try and give you guys as much information as possible. I don't know if I overload you or if it's a good amount, but I know that Paul Clark teaches full tutorials on his channel, and he was the one who broke down things for me, kind of like I'm showing you. So it just is very helpful to, when you're watching tutorials, to keep in mind that sometimes they tell you all the little details, and sometimes they just leave them out because it's a natural instinct of what they're doing. But Paul Clark always teaches by telling you what he's doing, which I think is very helpful. All right. What was I going to mix up? I forget now. What color? Oh, fleshy tone. So I'm rinsing my brush. I'm kind of let's just start with a clean area. And so clean brush, clean area. This is just kind of like our palette. I'm going to start with like one of my pale oranges. So like a yellow orange. I'm going to put a little bit of this scarlet red, I think. So I'm going to add a little bit extra just so you can see what I'm doing, because it's kind of hard to see what I'm doing if I don't add a lot of paint. But I don't need this much for the amount that I'm doing, but if you're going to paint a full portrait or something, you'll need it. So now I'm going back into the orange and mixing the orange back in there, the light orange. And if you can see what I'm doing, it's kind of real red. So what I do after I mix this color, I add just a little titch of blue. And you can use any of the blues you have. You add just a titch. You don't want a whole bunch. You can even use Payne's gray if you want. There we go. Look at how that's toning down that orange and red. And now it looks like skin tone. And you can make it different shades. You can go lighter by adding water. When you go lighter, you add water. If you want it to go darker, you can add more blue or more Payne's gray. But look at that. That's a good skin tone right there. And it's kind of watery, so I'm not sure how it's going to take on this watercolor, on this Bible page, but we'll try. It's a little thick. So I'm just going to dry it. Dab. And so now we've got that face on there. I'm going to let it dry and add the eye after it dries. You can't really see. There we go. Do you see what I'm talking about? Like, it's just so subtle right now. I haven't added any shadows on there, just the one part. Just the one part so far. So I may keep this in case I want to do a second layer on there. You can even use it to shade, because the more layers you put on something, the darker it gets. So now I'm looking at this as a whole. It doesn't have any shading, really. And I may end up putting some yellow flowers. What do you think about some like little daffodil type flowers? Let's just mix up some watery yellow. And I'm just going to splatter in this foreground. And if you're good at splattering, they won't go all over your whole page. If you're bad at splattering, like sometimes I am, you can always erase it with your brush, with like a damp brush, and that makes it look a little bit less. Now I'm going to do a darker yellow. So, you do some light yellow, and then you do some dark yellow. You can even do some that orange. And the bigger your brush is, the bigger your blobs will be. But I don't like all this in the water, so I'm just going to erase. I erase a lot. And I always have a paper towel. If you don't have a paper towel in your hand, you're not really watercoloring. Gotta have a paper towel. So now I've got all these little splatters in here for the yellow flowers up front. And I'm going to make a darker green stem. So I have two greens in my palette, Viridian green and sap green. You can also mix your own greens from yellows and blues. But I like the ease of using a pre-made green. And sometimes I mix my sap and my Viridian. I don't know. I just like to mix everything together sometimes. So I'm going to try this and see if it's not too green. I'm just adding stems. Let me see if I can zoom in for you guys. So see how I'm just doing some little stems, and this brush is very thick, but I'm having some good control right now, so I'm going to stick with it. Kind of. Kind of having some control. So I do suggest you practice doing this kind of thing where you use your largest brush and you try creating smaller lines with it and see what happens, right? Because you don't really know what's going to happen until you try it. But it helps you gain control, learn control quickly. So yeah, I'm just kind of willy-nilly doing this. Because as a loose watercolor artist, I want just the impression of these things. So I'm not actually making a ton of grass. I'm just doing a few blades here and there. So that's the key to a loose watercolor, is that you're making some marks here and there, and it looks like grass. I may just make that like that. And I like that color, so I'm going to put it here and there because I like it. And now we go back to the full picture. You can kind of see it's building. It's building up. It's starting to come together and make things happen. Now this tree up here could use a little bit darker. So I'm going to have just the side of my brush with some of that darker Payne's Gray. And you can splatter this too. Mix up some more green in there. Watch what happens when we splatter some green up into that tree. And I used my arm. You can use a paper if you don't want. This is the splatter I just did in the tree, and it just looks so pretty. I may do that over in the other tree. So let me see if we can do that. You guys want to see up close how it looks when I splatter? Let's see what happens. So I'm going to mix some green onto this and then just tap, 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 tap. And see how it's getting on this ground right here? I'm just going to rinse my brush, dry it, and erase those little dots that I don't want. So, and sometimes if you make dots in the sky where you didn't want, you can turn them into birds. That's always good. Beth said yes. So we showed you the splattering right there. I may go a little darker in some of these areas. And you can go in as dark as you want, adding a shadow on the bottom part of that tree. But it can be kind of fun to just let the splatters do some of the work. That's what a lot of people do when they're trying to get a lot of color down. They just splatter a bunch of paint and let it do whatever. So now I'm erasing the ones that are not where I want them. I like it. I like how it's turning out. I have not made shadows yet, so let's see. What color would you make your shadows? A lot of people, they guess gray, or they guess just a darker color of whatever it is. So I like blue-gray. I like blue shadows. So I kind of mix up a couple different blues together, and also my Payne's gray. So I like to mix in my Payne's gray and sometimes a little brown. We'll see what happens if I mix in a little brown. So see how I'm mixing up this color? I'm going to add a little more blue. Sometimes you can go really dark with your blues, like bright blue, and that looks really cool. It's a little bit not doing what I want. Let's see. So I'm going to keep adding blue till you like it. So look at that color. That's really nice. Now the thing about this is you might be like, oh, it's going to look awful, but trust me, trust the process. So I'm going to zoom in just so you can see I'm doing some shadows right under. And I'm going to do shadow under the tree. So let's just, want me to zoom out? Is that easier? So I'm going to put some shadowing right over that water, y'all. It's got to have shading there under each of our little sheet. We're going to use that blue, gray, right under my sheep. That just makes them grounded. Now I'm going to add a little bit of this blue right in some key spots on the fabric. I may add some right under some of the grass. This is when you can do a little bit on the edge of that road. You can do some wherever you want. You can be like, oh, that's not good. Rinse and dry your brush and just smooth it out, and it's not there anymore. And I don't know if my road is supposed to go that way. I don't know where my road's going. This water has the shadow over it, which I think is really cool. You can add some of this bluish gray into your stream in the spots. And that will add some definition. So that kind of looks good. See how that just makes it pop? We just want to make it pop. So what else do I need to do? We can soften some of this if we wanted to and not be so stark. But it doesn't matter. We can do some shadow on the tree trunks. We can do some shadow, which I'm almost out of, on the tree leaves. So that might be kind of something you want to do to add depth. And you may even need to get really darker with some of that on the tree trunk. I'm actually really happy with how this looks. It's looking like one of my paintings. And it's in my Bible. And y'all, this is going to be a special page to me when I look at it and even leave this to my children after I'm gone. And it will hopefully encourage them to open these Bibles that I've been painting in over the years. And they'll be like, oh, Mom painted that. And maybe they'll read it. Maybe I'll write a little note in there to them and say, I hope this brings you joy. I hope you find comfort in these words that David wrote. I might make that just a little darker. Shadows aren't the same color all the way around. Like if you actually look at a reference photo, you'll see that the colors of a shadow are not uniform. So like, kind of want to give you guys a quick tutorial on shadows. I do kind of want to do a class in depth. Some people have been requesting it, so I'm like, okay. But like, let's say you have like an apple, right? You have this apple, and then you're like, I need to shade my apple, right? So you've got some shading on this side of the apple. Well, underneath your apple, see how I'm going to just add some water and just spread that out just a little bit. That's all I was doing, is spreading that out. And then you'd want to dry it before you add the shadow. So I did a quick little, and this is not watercolor paper. Unfortunately, it is not watercolor paper. But I'm going to use a blue so you can see kind of what I'm doing. And we're going to make a shadow kind of go around. See that shadow on the bottom there? And it's just a blue color. And what I might do is put some of that blue up in there. But I did a little too far up there. So just a little bit off of that. And then I'm going to use my clean brush and just kind of blur that line just a little bit, because it looks good to blur it just a little. And then those shadows, you'll be surprised. Sometimes those shadows have, like, the darkest darks are right by the object, but then there's like some kind of reflection from the object. And this is not watercolor paper, so it is not doing what I want it to, but you kind of get the gist. So you can even make some darker areas of the shadow and then lift. And that makes it just kind of look a little bit more grounded. I don't know. Maybe that's a peach, not an apple. It looks weird. I would have to do a different, more in-depth kind of thing. But this is my page. I think I'm done. I might go in with that skin tone just a little bit and add a little brown into it. A little bit of gray. And dry my brush and just lift up a little bit and then just get those shadow in there for the eye socket maybe. I don't know. You can get more detailed if you want to. You can add a shadow with that blue we made. But you can just leave it kind of, you can just leave it too. It doesn't have to have a lot of detail. And another thing with loose watercolor paintings that are fun to do is take a pen after you're done. After it's dry, you can use a micron pen, which mine always dry out because I don't use them enough. Or use a gel pen. I have like this little sweet little gel pen. They have little kitty cats on the lid. So if you go on Amazon, you can find these. And I think it's called The Cat Story. Just right, like look that up maybe. The Cat